So today I have received a request. It says this: can today's talk be about memories and dreams about future? These experiences seem to shape how we understand ourselves, even though they are constantly shifting. I have been reflecting on how memories influence the present moment and how dreams reveal our hopes, fears, and possibilities for what lies ahead. These inner experiences seems to create our sense of self. How can we live without being affected from our memories or our dreams? Interesting reflection, isn't it? Maybe some people here can relate to it as well. If you have reflected, and it's kind of an interesting request. So there are a couple of interesting things I would like to say, but I don't know whether I can say anything final. But let me begin with telling a story, which is kind of, I don't know whether I'll be able to explain this. This is from one of my friends. Aisha might remember him. His name was Jason. We did PhDs together during this time. He's of Italian descent, but grown up here. And one day he told me this story. He said that he had this really clear dream. And his dream was about his cousin's wedding. So the wedding was to happen in another 6 months' time. But he already saw this wedding. This is a future event. And it was a very clear memory of like seeing all of the family members, aunties, uncles, himself as well, and the bride and the groom, and he even heard some of the talks. The groom gives a talk, the best man gives a talk, all of these talks as well, he listened. And he remembered, he had a really good memory of this dream of his cousin's wedding that is yet to happen. And very interesting incidences of people coming through doors or, various little things that happened. But it's not something that has happened, right? This is just a future event and nothing, he just thought it's just a dream of his mind thinking about it or whatever it is. I mean, your own wedding you can imagine because you're interested. Who thinks about so much about somebody, your cousin's wedding, right? In such great detail. But he said he had a real shock in 6 months' time at the wedding. He remembered his dream, and his shock was it was exact. This is what he said. Like even the dresses that all the aunties and aunties were wearing, like, and even how the groom and the bride looked, even the speech. I'm sure the person who gave the speech wrote it only, a day or two before, not 6 months before, right? And also many people only decides what they're going to wear for the wedding, only not, a couple of days or a couple of weeks, not 6 months before, very rarely. So it's really very interesting. How is this possible? How is this possible? Really interesting. And he may not be the only one who has had this kind of dreams. Premonition, is that the word? Yeah. And some people have, but that is only for very like soon to come. Sometimes they see something, but it is like to happen in a few minutes or few hours or in a couple of days' time. Not so long. So really interesting. What does that tell you? Whether, I mean, this is just not my own experience. This is what the person said. Whether his memory of his dream was accurate We don't know. Uh, but whatever it is, it's kind of interesting to see. But one of the interesting things is that in the Sampasadaniya Sutta, which is in the long discourses, I can't remember the sutta number, the Buddha talks about psychic ability to read mind. And there are 4 different ways to read minds. And some of them are profound, some of them are not very profound, and you will soon realize you too can read mind. And that is, we can all read body language, right? So when we see somebody, you know whether somebody is angry, somebody is sad, somebody is hungry, somebody whether they're in love with you, whether they are, telling a lie. Sometimes by just body language, you sort of get it. That's not very profound, but that's still helpful to have. But it's not anything that is a real psychic ability. It is still an interesting ability. The second way that you can read other people's mind is not really your own direct ability, but you have an ability to communicate with some non-human beings. So sometimes it could be ghosts, or it could be devas, it could be all kinds of beings. There are so many unseen beings around. We think we are the only people on earth. We and probably the animals that we see, but there are many other unseen beings also around. And some people are able to communicate, and some of these beings can read other people's mind because they're mind made, and minds have incredible ability to connect with other people's minds. I mean, this is also very similar when near death experiences happen, and people say that they could actually see the other person's mind, even feel what they feel, like mind to mind. It's interesting. But anyway, the second category people, they can read mind just by just listening. So they had the ability to communicate with a non-human being, and the non-human being says, so and so is thinking exactly like this. So they can repeat and say, oh, you are thinking like this. So you get surprised. So that's second category. The third category is a really strong meditative ability after deep meditation. Some people develop the ability where they can read the mind, in the sense they can know word for word what is going on in the other person's mind in the present. So if they're thinking, I want to have a chocolate cake and a coffee right now, you can say, oh, Adrian, I think you're thinking of having a chocolate cake and a coffee right now. And they go, wow, wonderful, Karunika can read my mind. Yes. So, so this is a psychic ability. If it was true, I'm sure it's not true. You're not thinking of cake and coffee right now. I can guarantee that. But when you say that, and if it was true, this is possible. So it's in such detail, right? In such detail, it's not like somebody looks like they need a coffee, or they're hungry, but they know exactly what they're thinking or how they're thinking it in detail. And the fourth kind is really interesting. The fourth kind, people, they can sink into the preparations of the mind, the sankharas. Yeah. Sankharas are like the mental formations, how the thoughts are formed. And they have the ability to know what the person is going to say a few minutes later, even. The person doesn't even know. Even I don't know what I'm going to say in 2 or 3 minutes later. But if any one of you have that psychic ability, you will know what I'm going to say in another 2 minutes' time. Exactly, because it's already prepared. It's like in a runway at the airport, you have all these planes lined up, and then when time comes, they take off one after the other. So our thoughts also that comes out of our mouth, in the present they're coming out, but what is to come is already lined up. Even I don't know what's lined up in my own mind. And I think I'm just thinking and giving this talk right now. I haven't prepared for it, right? I haven't prepared knowingly. I'm just saying what comes to my mouth right now. I don't know my next word, but it's already prepared, right? So people who have this, because we are conditioned, everything we do, we forget. This is where the free will, we think I thought about saying this, and I thought about, myself right now, and I decided and I did it, I said it. But the thing is, everything, even all of my Dhamma talks are just conditioned from the past. They come out. Sometimes, if you listen to so many, you sort of pick the pattern. It's over and over again. You hear certain things. They, to me, sometimes are like jukebox. You press the button of the song you like, and the song comes out. It's kind of like that. When I ask, give me a topic, ask me a question. That's the trigger. That's the pressing of the button. Like the moment they talk about anger, talk about sadness, talk about this or talk about that, there is something pre recorded, I don't know from when in the past, and it just comes out. That's what it is. But at the time, it feels like I'm saying it for the first time. In Ajahn Brahm, you can hear this a lot. He repeats the same jokes and stories and things like that as well. So, but whatever it is, this everything, and at least Dhamma talks, you might think, okay, there's a topic because you have spoken that topic many, many times, that kind of you say the same thing. But this is not the thing that if you have like a really interesting conversation at tea time with your friends about a unique topic, right? You think at that time you thought very unique ideas and said. But even those are still conditioned and already prepared before coming, right? So those are conditioned. So things from what went before are already conditioned. So these are future to come. The words that are to come, right, are already conditioned. So this is interesting to see. So everything is conditioned, and the law of karma, right? Our intentional actions have consequences. So the way we have inclined ourselves, the way, like when you see a tree in the forest, it's leaning in one direction. Eventually, in a storm, it's going to fall in that direction. It's very rare, extremely rarely, if the wind is so strong blowing from the other side, it might fall on the other direction. But very, very time, really high probability, it will fall in the direction that it is leaning. So this is the inclination. So that is why the inclinations of our actions, the way we think, the way we do, the karma that is accumulating, has a sort of a future, like already prepared. This too comes up in the Sampasadaniya Sutta. I think Adrian put it in maybe onto the chat. I saw something coming up. And there the Buddha says, our stream of consciousness. So the consciousness is not anything that is solid or permanent. It is conditioned every moment by contact. So mind contact or eye contact and all of those things causes consciousness. It's a stream of consciousness, but our stream of consciousness for an unenlightened being is established here in the sense where we are right now in the sensual world, the kind of lifestyle that we are living, the inclinations of our minds, whatever we are doing, it's established here, and it has a projection towards where it's going to go. But that changes with the things that we do. Like if you get into deep meditation, like a jhana, it changes the direction quite dramatically to where your future could be. Like if you do really incredible wholesome karma, so having deep meditation is one of those, or like if there was an arahant and you really gave dana, because that's a really high meritorious thing, it changes again where your consciousness is going to. Or you killed somebody suddenly, or you killed your parents, it changes the direction very quickly. Yeah. So depending on your current actions, it can change. And the thing is that our current actions are conditioned by many things, not just our past, but also what is happening in the present, right? You know, the weather, the other people, the news, so many things also condition, which is why future is uncertain. Yeah, future can never be 100% predicted 100%. Buddha also never really predicted what's going to happen in the suttas. There is like very, very rare few things. There is one interesting thing, sutta that comes to mind. I think that's only one of the very few times the Buddha talks about future is Sapta Surya Gamana Sutta, about the seven suns. So in that sutta, I can't remember where it is in now, in which book, probably in Anguttara Nikaya or Samyutta Nikaya. He talks about a time in future that there will be seven suns, up to seven suns coming up, right? So how, you know, all the oceans going to gradually decrease, go back, and you know, become low. Like it can't even, we can't even cover our feet. There's not enough water, and then everything dries up, and then everything becomes so dry, and this whole earth will just burn, vanish, and become just stardust because it'll be too hot. So something like this. And sometimes you wonder whether he's telling because he sees the future, or whether some of these things are recurring like cyclic patterns that he already know from the past, because he knows what has already happened in the past. So if it's a cyclic event, you can say things like, you know, cyclic events like super volcanoes, they have a cycle of few 100,000 years. Every 700,000 years this volcano can go up. So if you've seen it happen, then you know, and you know what it's like because you have a memory of what happened then you can, based on that, say future is like that. So but the thing is, future is very uncertain because it's just like really that kind of phenomena. But apart from that, it's very hard to tell exactly what will happen because of the influence. That's why even the tree is inclining in one direction, and very high probability it will fall in that direction. But if there's a very strong wind coming from the opposite direction, that tree can fall the opposite way as well. So this is where it is uncertain. So there's always a small possibility. There's another story where the Buddha talks about when you throw up a stick, very many times the probability it will fall first, the heavy side will come down first. But very rarely it could happen that even the lighter side can come down as well. This is like how the kamma and vipaka can work. Sometimes, you know, you have a way that the strong kamma is heading, and you feel that this is what's going to happen next. But because there are many, many things influencing the workings of the kamma and its results, something else can also happen, which is why the Buddha says, don't think about the working of the karma. It is very specialized only for the Buddhas to understand this properly. And if anybody else tries to understand the working of the karma, we will go mad. He says you will go mad. So not to think, because it's complicated. So this is where, you know, it's interesting. So I'm saying all of these things to see, you know, about the future, what we think, what we ponder, what our inclinations, you know, project into, is very unreliable. Yeah, but there is some sort of a way it's heading, which is why, like, if in most cases when people just really go through the natural flow, kind of in a very blind way, without being awake, without much mindfulness, without much happening, maybe, you know, you could almost know what's going to happen. Maybe that is how you could have that kind of premonition, where even up to 6 months an event, what's going to happen. Kind of very strange. I don't know how, but you know, there is probably, but it's never 100%. So, but anyway, what the Buddha says is future is so uncertain that it is a complete waste of time thinking about and dreaming about future. This we already know because we have, whether the Buddha said it or not, we don't listen to him. We keep dreaming, right? We keep fantasizing about future. This is the nature of human minds. This is the nature of defilements. This is our sense of self and craving, wanting certain things, and we keep dreaming. And whatever we want, whatever we incline, that also actually comes into the actual dreams when we sleep. There's two types of dreaming, the daydreaming and the dreaming that happens at night. But whatever you think and ponder, this the Buddha says in Majjhima Nikaya, Middle Length Discourses, Sutta number 19, Dveda Vitaka Sutta, whatever you ponder and think about, the inclination of your mind, that is what, going to become very often. It becomes a reality. So if you have a lot of sensual thoughts, well, your mind is inclined and you will be craving for sensual things and be in the sensual world. So inclination of the mind, what we think and ponder, is really important. What we do, if it is wholesome, unwholesome, it's and what we think and ponder about breaks into speech and action down the track. We know this as well. But on the other side, whatever we think what could happen, we know from our already past experience has always been otherwise. You can be sure whatever you think that's what's going to happen, it's definitely not going to be exactly that. It might be close, but it's never exactly how you think it's going to happen. This is an experience that we already have from our projecting into future, and now the events that have become past already. So this is where it is a complete waste of time to daydream and dream and think about a future, dream about future. So and also have to be very careful. Anything dream about good things, getting into deep meditation, becoming still, yeah, giving up things. Well, maybe they're at least heading you towards a good kind of direction rather than into the sensual world. But our general inclination is not like that. So this is about the future, and future is a lot about our cravings, our desires, our unfulfilled things, our sense of self, who we are, what we want to be, all of these things. It's interesting, but it is still made up, coming and based in delusion. This is the thing, right? Because there is this sense of self, which is a big delusion, when there is only a bunch of conditions. And based on that, I exist, I am, and then I want. And based on that, I and my wanting, and we don't even know what we really want. Because how many times did we want something and got thoroughly disappointed? Yeah, we think this is what we want. We think and plan, this is what's going to be good for me. And sometimes we reject what is in front of us, what is already here, thinking this is not good enough, and miss out. Sometimes what's already here is probably the best thing for us, but we think something else is better and we chase after that and get into trouble. This has happened to us many times, and this is true because we have all experienced this, because we don't know what we really need. More than that, not only us, we also think that we know what other people want and need. So we try to also organize other people's lives. So this is good for them. Try to get this, organize that, give some advice for people. This is what you want. This is what you need. This is what you should do. So, but all of these things, unless we are fully enlightened, with free of defilements, and is very wise, then we might be able to give some helpful advice. But apart from that, it is just delusion speaking, delusion creating these things. So they are all really made up things and direct us in the wrong direction. So we have to be very, very careful about the inclinations of our minds that can then become our dreams and things like that. But when it comes to thinking about the past and memories, it's also very interesting. Now, if you can recall something, like maybe, when you were about 10 or 12 years of age, maybe some interesting story from your life, because we all have at some kind of in your childhood an interesting story, maybe something that happened during a family holiday or at school. We all have stories to tell when we sit around with friends, right? So if you were to record when you tell this story, if you were to tell this story to your boss at work, record it how you say it. And then record it when you tell that same story to your mother, to your spouse, to your best friend, or to a stranger that you meet on the train, right? Same story, and this is your story that happened to you. And if you recorded all of those and if you listened, you will wonder later, is this the same story? Because the way you begin, the way you emphasize, the words you use are so different. The person listening will hear something completely different. Yet for you, you're not telling lies. You're telling what happened, how you remember it, and how you want to tell. How you want the other person to know you as from your past. Your past, you think as is what has conditioned you. This is who I am. The things that happened to me is who I am. All my experiences is who I am. This is how we identify and build up our sense of self. And when we also want to tell to people, it depends what kind of impression you want to make. How do you want to present your sense of self? This is the whole point of why we talk. Like, think about a vast majority of the time, why do people talk? The beneficial talk is very rare. Like, you're really hungry and you want something to eat, or you want to know where the toilet is, or some kind of, crucial information, and you talk, is very little percentage. Vast majority of the time, why we talk is to impress and express ourselves, to sort of make solidify our sense of self as we talk. That's me. I am the one who did this happened to me, I like this, this is me. And depending on who you are talking to, and it also includes all of these past memories. So really interesting to see this connection between the sense of self, like that is the ego, and its desires, and how it remembers. So people say, oh, I have a clear memory. This is what happened. But these days it's so good because you have lots of videos, so you can check it out. And you'll be shocked. Oh, how I remembered and what's recorded is so different. You say, it was a red colored car that hit my car. I remember it was a red. But in the video, you see it's actually blue. It's shocking. You have memories of colors, even gender. A guy spoke to me, and then actually it was a girl who spoke to you. There's research about these things, and yet at the time you are so sure this is your memory. This is exactly what happened. And this is why sometimes you have fights between siblings, remembering, no, this is what happened, this is what happened. No, 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 this is not what I remember it like this. And no, nobody knows what was real, right? So this is how bad our memories are. Our memories are also very much distorted by our defilements, our sense of self, this delusion, right? And we think the way we want to think about our past. Because sometimes we want to sort of feel good, comfort ourselves by thinking about, various things. How people loved us or gave us or cared for us overly much more than what actually happened, depending on our mood, right? How we think about things. And depending on our mood, the same incident we think in a different way. So unreliable. So all these things are made up. We can't be sure. And even if we can be sure, it's already past, memories of the past, it's finished. But why do memories keep coming? This is interesting. Some people say they're haunted by memories. They're constantly getting these memories. That's because we have given so much value that actually relates to our sense of self somehow. So we have to investigate and see, why am I holding on to some of these memories? What is important? Yeah, sometimes it's really interesting why people don't let go of memories is you have business to resolve. They did this to me, I want to take back them back. Yeah. So therefore you can't let go of the memory because you have unresolved business still to do, so you hold on to the memory. Or this happened to me and I want to do something about it, so you hold on to it. So I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, but this is what happens because there is this sense of self and the feelings, the desires, what should be, what shouldn't be, the advantages, disadvantages, or the things that happened that was fair, unfair, right and wrong. It's complicated. So for whatever reason, then we hold on to these memories, and that's why then they keep, because we have given value to them. So they are there. But remember, they are unreliable. Any memory that is reliable are memories of when your hindrances were down. Like if you ever had a jhana meditation, in your meditation, if you went into deep meditation, that you can recall quite well. Again, not at a time when your mind is full of hindrances in the present, but at a time when you're reasonably peaceful, when the hindrances are reasonably down, then you can actually recall, and it will be really clear memory. Why? Because at that time, the mindfulness is really, really strong. So things that happen at a really strong mindfulness with hindrances being down is very clear. Yeah. And then there are incidences where, because of fear, like you were drowning, you're like you're about to die, you had an accident, you were in the war zone or something with lots of that kind of thing. Also, because the mindfulness is heightened, you will remember, but they are still not going to be exact because there is the defilement of fear there or something that caused that heightened mindfulness. So because of the mindfulness, you will still remember it quite well, but not still exact. People say, I mean, I don't know these things really well, like a it has to be somebody who's a psychologist who will be able to explain this, because there are people have repressed memories. Means that you don't even know that this has happened because it's kind of like a trauma. It has gone to repression and you don't remember it, and suddenly it comes out, maybe due to causes and conditions. And then they say that memory is also pretty clear. Some people say they remember, they can even smell, they can remember the dresses, the smiles in great detail. Very interesting. So I don't know how reliable these things are and why and how they operate. But whatever it is, it's the thing is, all this now has happened. Anything that we can benefit from past memories is to learn from it and grow from it. Yeah. So whatever memories you have, see what you can learn from it, what to do, what not to do. Yeah, where things went right, where the mistakes you did. So that's okay. Instead of beating yourself up or getting upset at somebody, try and see, how can I use whatever I remember, whatever my memory, to grow in the Dhamma. So that is the only time memories of the past can be of any benefit. Again, still remember that whatever you remember is going to be distorted and not really accurate. But that's all we have. But when it comes to meditative states, yeah, deep meditation and memories of those, so there is a technique the Buddha recommends this people to do. This is called, the Pali word is Pachavekkana, retrospection, reflecting back. Now, this is different to memories. Yeah, this is reflecting back on a certain incident, but reflecting back. But especially what is useful is you can reflect back anything, but it is done in a way that wisdom can come, because you actually reflect back through the lens of right view, not with sense of self, not with delusion, but with the Dhamma. So then it can actually help you to get an insight. So this is when you can actually learn from your past and you suddenly have an insight. You see what the Buddha is talking about. Yeah. So you understand. For example, so the Buddha says, you know, our sorrow, lamentation, grief, and despair are born from the ones we love. And many people say, no, that's not true. People we love brings us happiness. That's what we think, right? Because we love hanging around with them. And when they're there, we are happy. How come our loved ones bring us so much suffering? But then we know, like when our loved ones disappoint our expectations, how hurtful that was. So you reflecting back, you can realize, wow, when this other person did the same thing, it didn't affect me. I didn't mind. But when this other person who I really love did exactly the same thing, it was so painful, right? Why was that? Because of my love. And then, of course, my loved one passed away. What was the pain like? Yeah. So like that, So then, what the Buddha says is true. This is just an example, just to say, like, it's very simple, easy to understand one. But once you learn your Dhamma, and when you reflect back into some things in a wise way, together with that Dhamma, that is right view, then little insights and understanding about life comes to be. That is how we understand. So reflection, that paccavekkhana, is important. That is different to just having memories. Memories, when we have going through a lens of delusion, hindrances, whereas paccavekkhana is to be done when the hindrances are low. So paccavekkhana or retrospection is ideally done after meditation. Even if it is jhana, of course, that's more powerful and you will have liberating insights. But even if your mind is reasonably peaceful, yeah, so you don't have lots of sensual desires, ill will, negativity, sloth and torpor, restlessness or doubt, these things are subside. Your mind is fairly energetic and peaceful. Those times you can reflect back, and then that actually helps to grow in wisdom. But that's different, yeah. So that's the only time memories and things can be of any help. Other than that, they are a waste of time. So I don't know, sometimes people have asked me, what is your favorite sutta, right? People always wants to know from monastics, what is your favorite sutta? I mean, people who love suttas, we have so many. Like, I love suttas, so I have so many suttas I love. But one sutta I realized that I keep coming back again and again in so many of these Dhamma talks on the Thursday nights itself, is this one. And this is this ideal solitude. Yeah. And there's this beautiful set of verses. I think this is one of my very top favorite suttas. So let me read it again once more. Sorry for repeating. I'm sure each one of you have heard it many times, but I find it inspiring every single time. Let one not trace back the past or yearn for the future yet to come. That which is past is left behind. Unattained is the yet to come. But that which is present, he discerns with insight as and when it comes. The immovable, the non-irritable. In that state, in that state, should the wise one grow. Today itself should one bestir. Tomorrow death may come. knows. For no bargain can we strike with death who has his mighty hosts, but one who dwells thus ardently, by day, by night, untiringly. Him the tranquil sage has called the ideal lover of solitude. So I really love this, the beginning of the whole verse. But let one not trace back the past or yearn for the future yet to come. Yeah, that which is past is left behind, unattained is yet to come. So this summarizes, really beautifully what a waste of time, keeping holding on to memories and projecting and going back to those, or projecting into the future and dreaming about things. This is only created. Yeah, we create them, we make up things, and then they sort of become, not exactly, but they become. So if anything that we create, if it is wholesome, that is fine. That is why this is whole part of practice is called practice. Yeah, so we practice to condition in good ways. So that is why the Buddha too gives helpful reflection. So reflect the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma or the Sangha, or reflect on, so anything past, reflect on your own goodness, Chaganusati. Reflect on your virtue, Silanusati. Yeah. Reflect on the qualities of divine beings, just so that you can incline your mind into really high being, high states. So these are the kind of things, and then there are so many other beautiful reflections. Reflect, that death can happen and you don't know when. This is the marana sati. Yeah. And then the idea of impermanence, the idea of suffering, the idea of things being made up, so many Dhamma things the Buddha says to reflect. But again, we have to be very careful. Some people, I mean, last week's talk was about somebody, sort of getting, what was that? Existential uh, dread because of impermanence. So that comes when the mind is not ready to see some of these realities. So our reflections, Dhamma reflections, especially these deep ones, has to go hand in hand with deep meditation and joy states. So when the mind is powerful and energetic, it is ready to face reality and see reality for what it is. At other times, when we try to see it, it can be scary, right, for people, because you're not ready, because you still have the sense of self, and it goes counter to what the sense of self wants. That's why it's scary. We don't want those things, but that's reality. So that is why I have to time and place is important for reflections, and what kind of reflections. So this is the whole point of why we learn Dhamma and this a whole array of Dhamma to know where we are at. It is a gradual path, a gradual training, right? Anupubba Sikha, Anupubba Kiriya, Anupubba Patipada. It is a very gradual, like the the great ocean starting from the shore deepens so gradually. So this is how, our progress in the path is also very gradual. So we need to know where we are at and what is appropriate, what are we ready, what is helpful for us to make progress. And how do you know that? Yeah, how do you know that? Is by trial and error. So you try. Yeah, so you do something that is according to the sutta, and if your wholesome mind states are increasing when you do that, and your unwholesome mind states are decreasing, well, you're ready for that, you're benefiting from that. And you might do something that is what the instructions of the Buddha, but so it's instructions that you're following. But when you're doing that, your unwholesome mind states are coming up, like fear and dread and all of those things. And wholesome mind states are going down, then it's not the time to do it. You're not ready, or you're not doing it properly. So whatever it is, then you have to stop, right? So this is how, if you don't have a teacher, which is for most people, like we don't have living teachers in your pocket, so to speak, like whenever you want to ask them, what should I do? How should I do? Guide me, take me by my hand and guide me through this difficult path. We don't have that option, right? There are very few really good teachers and they're too busy. They have too many students, so they can't hold hands of all of them and do. All they can do is give, like, Dharma talks, direct them. But technically, we have to. Even the Buddha could not really take you. He could only also point the way. So we just try to walk and see as we are walking, are we heading in a direction where wholesome states are growing, unwholesome states are growing, or the opposite is happening. So this is where that reflection of the mind, the Buddha says, this is like having a mirror. Like the mirror is to see, yeah, your face. If you want to be beautiful, you take up a mirror and look again and again to see the defects in your face and fix them up. In the same way, as you practice, you keep taking up this mirror, reflect into your mind and see what it does. Yeah. So then you know what kind of meditation is good for you, what kind of reflection is helpful for you, what kind of stage are you ready to become a monastic, or do you want to practice as a lay person? Do you want to downsize things? How and where and when? All those things. It's something that you understand slowly, slowly, but it is gradual. So these are also reflections, but they're different to projecting, yeah, into future or to memories and past and things like that. But yeah, the person who wrote this question also said that they have already come to understand, the all these things finally gives you an understanding of who you think you are, right? And you're none of those, but it's helpful sometimes. If it is some unwholesome traits that are there, not to get upset, you understand it was just conditioned. Okay, what other conditions can I put in to get in? And this is part of the practice. This is what we do call practice. So putting in the wholesome causes and conditions into place. So it's all these things, but very interesting just to see in your mind how we create. This is the very famous thing again. I keep telling, like, what happens when you got this very emotional kind of emotion triggering message, whether it's an email or a text message or something, and impulsively how you try to react to it, how you write a reply to it. And if you didn't put the send button 2 hours later, how would you respond to it? A couple of days later, how you do it, and that shows, all of what we think and project is conditioned by many things, your mood, other information, so many things, your sense of self. So it's all unreliable, transient. When you start to see the magician of the mind, that's what the Buddha said. Their consciousness, the Buddha says, is like a magician. It creates things. This is why it's so dangerous. This is why we should not believe our mind, right? It can concoct all kinds of things. This is also why it's very dangerous to go for all kinds of interesting modern meditation techniques and find out all the different stages, what will happen, what to expect. Then what you do, people just create them. The mind can create all these things, yeah? And you think it's the real thing, and then you get into a trap. Because mind is incredible, it can create things. And it feels like real. Yeah, this is why. So part of our memories, part of our dreams, all of those things are just creations, unreliable. So as you see when these things are happening, this is the best thing to learn from memories and dreams, is to see the unreliability of these things, the transient nature, that they are just made up. Made up by who? Made up by me, based on my views, perceptions, conventions that I have taken on board, and my mood, my understanding, my spiritual faculties, and my defilements. Yeah, they come together and concoct these things. So, not to take them seriously. Again, as a very short reminder, remember the time I had to give comments to a paper, and how my comments and feedback changed, over the days. So you think, yeah, I'm the expert on the field and I'm doing a great job. Okay, we have to do it, but, be careful with it, not be too sure about it, yeah, not to be too sure. This is this beautiful thing about, Ajahn Chah's teachings as well, not sure, yeah. So you do your very best, but never take everything to be so certain, final, definite. It's very unreliable, yeah, very, very unreliable. So this is the only thing that we can take from there, and you can understand, where you're at and what kind of defilements you have, and then you can work with it. Those are the helpful things. So I think I've spoken enough. Maybe people can ask questions if they like, or put into the chat. So Adrian, thank you for putting all those suttas onto the chat. And so yeah, okay. All right.
I have a question.
Okay, Simran.
My question is about, accepting the here and now when you know also that it's not the best for you, that it would probably be wiser if you did change in some sort of way, whether it's maybe some of your bad habits or who you're with, something like that. You know that where you are right now is actually not what is good for you. It's actually probably not the best decision, and it's very obvious about that.
Yeah. So the acceptance, thank you for that question, good question, is that not to fight, not to create more defilements. That's all. But you learn from it and you put in the right causes so that in future what happens is different, right? So if it makes sense. But if you have something in the present, if you fight with it and anger comes up or sadness comes up or desires come up, it's not helpful for us. So that is when we accept, in the sense, we understand why it has happened. But it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. And I have to be very careful every time I say accept, is we are not telling to accept something like abuse. You don't say, okay, this is happening, I endure it, I accept it. Not at all. This is not what it is. So you have to put in boundaries, you have to take action about it. But acceptance is in the sense you don't get allow defilements to come as a result. Because when you sort of reject things, defilements come. So rather, by accepting, you can have more wisdom, your kindness, understanding, and then you can actually respond to it and deal with it in a good way. So this is the idea, yeah. So the acceptance have to be clearly understood. Otherwise, it's not to just be complacent and whatever happens, allow yourself to drown and get overwhelmed and get kicked this way and that way and get abused. Not at all. That's not the kind of acceptance. The acceptance of with understanding. So that's all I have to say, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.